Good morning, I'm Jonathan Cart, and I am the CEO of the Lipedema Foundation. It's wonderful to be with you all here today. This is my first conference since 2020, and it's great to be back in the swing of things and to have those serendipitous interactions with everyone that you don't get over Zoom with the little tiny boxes. I had a great chance to meet many of you yesterday, and I'm really looking forward to meeting so many more of you for the rest of today and tomorrow. I'm just going to say a few words about what the Lipedema Foundation has been up to lately. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Guy Eakin in just a couple minutes, who will really dive into the great progress in lipedema research over the last few years. Just a couple quick notes. We have no disclosures. Articles that we funded are denoted by the Lipedema Foundation logo throughout the presentation. And as always, nothing in here should be considered medical advice. Please talk to your medical professional about any questions about any disease. So first and foremost, I feel so privileged to be working with this foundation's team, this tremendous team. For those of you that have been to previous conferences, you'll notice a lot of new faces on this slide. Many of you, of course, will know our founder, Felicity Daftar, who's here. And one other familiar face is Steph Peterson, who unfortunately couldn't be here with us. The rest of us have all joined in the last year or two. I'm relatively new at the foundation. I joined just about 6 months ago. So please come and find us. With the exception of Steph, we're all here today. We're very excited to meet you, and especially we would love to talk to people with lipedema and other fat disorders that are here in attendance. I'm going to tell you about just a couple of new tools that we've been working on. We've been working on a lot. So for more, please check out our website, lipedema.org/FDRS. One tool I want to tell you about is the Legato Comprehensive Lipedema Research Library. This is an up-to-date, fully searchable library of the latest lipedema research. Many of the articles that you'll find in this resource are open access. You can click through to them and find the full text copy of them and go as deep as you would want. Not all of them are there. We're working on some of those changes. That's on our website, and as I mentioned, you can go to the FDRS page to get a quick link out to that. Another tool that we're really excited about is the Legwork Clinical Trial Finder. This is a tool that in less than a minute will let you search for recruiting lipedema clinical trials near you. The caveat I should give is that there are very few trials in there right now. This is unfortunately a sad statement about the current state of lipedema research writ large. That said, all of the Lipedema Foundation funded studies are required to list their trials in clinicaltrials.gov, which is where this resource pulls from. So keep an eye on the tool in the next few months as more of those trials start to come online. And then lastly, I just wanted to say that we funded a tremendous slate of researchers in the past few months. All of these folks are doing research across a wide swath of the science, ultimately all geared around trying to improve our ability to diagnose lipedema and hopefully one day to treat it more effectively. We're going to have a presentation tomorrow as well to talk about our Lipedema Foundation registry, reporting back some of a first look at the results from that research. But for now, I'll turn it over to Guy, who will give you a deep dive into the progress in lipedema research in the last few years.
Green button. All right, thank you. Hey, it's great to see everyone. This is my first time at FDRS, so it's really just been remarkable to have a chance to meet the few people that I have already, so I hope to meet the rest of you over the next 24 hours, something like that. Speaking of short times, I have 10 minutes to get through 18 months of research, that have happened, so let's get going. So look, I mean, the good news here is that lipedema research is really experiencing almost a renaissance. You can see on this graph that especially in those orange bars at the top, this is the primary data, not just opinion papers, that is really growing since 1951 on the left, such that almost 50% of our primary data has been published in the last 4 years. And so that, one of the parts of my talk is to say, okay, how do we interpret research? Well, one of those things is as you're reading research either in the consumer press or even research articles, be skeptical of anything that fails to acknowledge those newer studies. They aren't up to date. So just keep that in mind as we go on. I am proud of the fact that the Lipedema Foundation has supported about 20% of the new data that's come out since the foundation's inception, but also a little embarrassed. We shouldn't be relying on philanthropy to support your health. So the first milestone of the last year is that the NIH gave its first ever research grant for lipedema research, and it gave it to Dr. Rochelle Krasinski, who is here in the room somewhere, and I would hope she would raise her hand. There she is. So, absolutely. So it's not the first time that the NIH has given money to lipedema. It helped publish the standard of care with a small grant, but it is the first research grant, so truly monumental. Standard of care, most people in the room know that it exists. It has so many good strengths around it. It used a Delphi process in a true consensus fashion to make sure no one opinion dominates the room. It really covers the journey of a patient from diagnosis through treatment and many non-medical issues. It does have some wait and sees, and so all of my talk is about the cautions too. And remember that first slide was all about the growth in the lipedema literature, so we got to update that. We got to make sure that we get on a cadence of updates for that standard of care to keep it up to date with the emerging literature. But hats off to the people who put that together. It does, and this is a wait and see, differ from other points of view internationally. There's clinical guidelines around the world for lipedema research, and we could spend more than an hour, I'm sure, talking about those. Our colleague, Stephanie Peterson, has created for you just a wonderful layout of how all of these guidelines compare to one another, like which features are in which guideline. It's just truly a tremendous thing. It's at our booth. It's on our website. Please go find it, because it's just a really wonderful thing she's put together for you. Okay, so research in general, some things, we have a lot of growth in research, but some things haven't changed. It's a small field. We're really excited about this field, but you should stay skeptical about any one paper that you hear about. We just don't have enough repetition in the field yet. We are an underfunded field, so compromises have to get made. Study samples are small. There's not enough lipedema patients in our studies. They often lack the controls. We have imprecise measurements like the waist to hip ratio. Where's your waist? Is it here? Is it here? Is it here? We don't know, when we read that literature. Double blinding, we have to be really careful about. If you had a surgery, you had a surgery, right? So we have to be really careful on subjective measures like pain, quality of life, because they're really susceptible when we don't have blinding to placebo effect. But that said, let's keep going. Take a breath. We have new nutrition data. So this is exciting because we have the first ever data in a lipedema population around things like the ketogenic diet. We've had a lot of good patient experiences, a lot of stories, but this is the first published data. And nutrition data is great because it's the one or few things that you can do yourself in your own home. You can change your behaviors, but we have very little literature out there that is specifically studied in lipedema patients. Help. Oh, there it is. Okay, cautions. All of my slides are going to have cautions. These aren't off-the-shelf ketogenic diet or Mediterranean diet. They're often modified in some way, or the people in the study are working with an individualized dietitian who's helping craft that personalized plan. Sometimes when something says it's a success, it's not specifically a success to something that might be a symptom of lipedema, so just bear that in mind. But look, the general trend here is that things that patients probably already believe, that weight loss is possible in lipedema, but may be disproportionate. You may lose weight in the areas affected by lipedema, but maybe at a lower rate than other areas. If it is helpful for pain, and reference my earlier caveats about pain and blinding, it may only be that when you're actually on that nutritional plan. If you cease the plan, and we know that things like ketogenic diet can sometimes be hard to maintain over time, you might expect the pain to return. The data we'll see in the future, but I think the big conclusion out of all of this is that there is no one successful approach, that many diets may have benefit, and the most important experiment is the one you do on yourself, but just do it with your dietitian and doctor. Okay, more details on all of these individual studies. I hope we've gone and we've broken out all of these studies. I'm just showing you the high line, but they're available at our booth in this handout. Okay, conservative therapy. You all know that insurance, yeah, I know, 5 minutes. Yeah, you all know that insurers are not reimbursing, so let's skip to the punch on this. We have new randomized controlled trials. There are some problems with these trials. Sometimes the people coming into the trials are different between groups than the people receiving the intervention. But in general, some studies showing late-stage lipedema having benefits, particularly for reduced limb volume, greater mobility, and reduced pain. And then some pilot data from a study we funded. I think Paula is going to talk about that maybe later in the day, I hope. But it suggested even in the earlier stages that we can have reduced similar effects, but also improve molecular markers, specifically around inflammation. Surgery studies have traditionally been very focused on what the surgeon sees on the table or immediately after the surgery, but is moving into more of the outcomes that matter to patients, like those quality of life measures. Quality of life is hard. You really need to study that specifically and validate it in a lipedema patient population. That really hasn't been done yet. But all those things said, the winds are blowing in the direction of surgery being effective, people require less conservative therapy, that it may be more effective at earlier ages, earlier stages, and that significant severe adverse events are real but are rare. But you may have and I think some of Karen's survey data shows that maybe even a quarter of the population will have some less severe events. I'm going to go ahead and just move forward in the interest of time. Genetic studies are coming out that, if I asked around the room, probably half of the lipedema patients say they have a family history of lipedema. That's sort of starting to bear out in the research literature as well, but we don't have any one gene that is a smoking gun saying this is the lipedema gene. And there are some areas out there where you might see people mentioning that, and I think that's probably a misread of the literature. So just be careful when you say that. It's probably lipedema is really going to be a contribution of a lot of different genes with very subtle interactions to what your risk of developing lipedema. Most of this genetics research, though, we're only getting dozens of patients, 100 to 200. We really need thousands of patients to make some of these claims. If you are being offered a genetic test, I think one of the things that we need to be aware of is probably the state of the science is just not good enough right now for a genetic test to tell you more information than just asking about the family history. Other areas with new questions as I wrap up. I'm getting I'm getting the sides from the back. Look, we know so little about the role of sex hormones, and there's new papers. In fact, I even put into that Legato library this morning another paper that's starting to take us in the direction of learning something about what's actually occurring with estrogens. We need new models, and we saw plenty of models last night. That's not what I'm talking about. We're talking about mouse models. We're talking about other clinical models of lipedema. Our epidemiology research, really needs to be taken with a grain of salt. We need better epidemiology research to fix all of this. We need your involvement in research. We need to keep figuring out what's that first domino to fall, pushing the disease backwards in time. We need to figure out good measures for the field, and we need to not be complacent. This is a quote from a 1974 paper that just said, lipedema, it's no problem to figure out what it is. And then, we still get emails saying, lipedema, no problem to find it, no problem to solve it. What's the big deal? Why do you fund all this research? Well, that's not good enough. You all deserve more. How can you be involved? It can be... I'm going to ask for an extra 5 seconds. How can you be involved? It can be as easy as just taking a survey. It's not always being poked and prodded. In fact, even patient engagement and research can be about making contact with people like me or the other researchers you see around the room, and just asking if you can be part of the interpretation of their data or even the design of their studies. So that's one way to get involved. But we have a survey going on right now, and it's really quite simple. It's like, how did you all fare during COVID? How do you all believe that you are doing relative to the larger population? We'll see those results in tomorrow's talk. and my time is up. And I think I had one slide that I'd love to just walk off the stage and leave you with. Like, we all have email addresses, social media, stay in touch, and visit our booth.
I just wanna